And it's another edition of The Locker Room. And we are your three hosts, Kyle Anderson,
Brandon Jones, live in the locker room.
Matt Hirsch, right here in the locker room.
and this is where the BS stops and the analysis starts. And The Locker Room is brought to you by Rammer Jammer Beer. Go to rammerjammerbeerco.com to see where you can buy t-shirts, koozies, and where the beer is selling in the state of Alabama. rammerjammerbeerco.com. Guys, once again, the NBA season has come to an end. NHL has come to an end. We're now in that little bit of a lull before we start getting into
College baseball's coming to the end.
Yep.
Come to an end.
So now,
Confederations Cup just wrapped up yesterday.
what is that?
Football.
Yeah.
Now we're ready for real football because that was football.
That was football.
Now we're ready for real
I just
football.
call it soccer.
So now we're going to go ahead and decide what do we want to talk about now. There's been a lot going on. We'll leave it open to you guys. I mean, what do y'all think? What's the big topics that's going on right now?
Aaron Hernandez, come on down. You are the next contestant on the locker room.
And it's funny because if you've been living under a rock or you don't know about this story, Aaron Hernandez was a tight end out of Florida, drafted by the New England Patriots this year, was just getting done signing a $40 million contract with $19 million guaranteed, and apparently was being involved with a little bit of a murder case. And I'll see. I mean, I know bits and pieces about it. I just know he looks guilty as hell right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A little bit of a murder case. Hey, it's either murder or it ain't murder. And he's,
there are two other murders
Yeah.
that they're suspecting him of now too. So
and now they're talking about a shooting in Florida when he was with the Gators that he was questioned about.
Well, the guy lost his eye.
It rains of pours.
what a tough time to be a fan of Boston anything. Like, they've had a rough year. Like, I'm not a fan of a lot of Boston teams, but after just the situation with the bombing and then now all their sports teams, things that you would think that they're wanting to get away from from that and kind of delve into. They've had the deal with Hernandez. Gronkowski stays hurt. They lost the Stanley Cup, thank goodness. Sorry, Bruins fans. Go Blackhawks. And then recently in the NBA, they just sent Doc Rivers to the Clippers and KG and Paul Pierce to the Nets. So if you're a Boston fan right now, it's kind of tough going. Sorry, guys and ladies.
But now with Aaron Hernandez, I mean, that situation, I mean, it's sad because, with Gronkowski, I mean, he's injured, and then here he comes in. Hernandez is going to probably be the go-to guy, the number one tight end, and then all of a sudden this comes out.
Now the number one tight end is Tim Tebow.
And that is something that I wanted to delve in with you guys because, Brandon, we had talked about this off air, and Matt, I wanted to get your opinion on it. Brandon, you made a good point with all the people bringing up the question that when Hernandez was no longer with the Patriots and it looks like he's going to be going to jail, people kept saying, well, Tim Tebow could come in and play that position. The response you said to me the other day I thought was really poignant and made a great point about, isn't that kind of a little bit of an insult to people that do play tight end in the NFL to think that Tebow could just come right in and play?
Tim Tebow, to my knowledge, has never played receiver, has never played tight end. All right, he understands how to throw to the routes. All right, he's never had to run a route. He's never had to block. He's never had to alter routes. That's a slap in the face to tight ends and receivers who get moved to tight end. They have done this their whole career. To think that Tim Tebow is just going to move over to tight end and it's just going to be...
How many people remember, was it Matt Jones that played at Arkansas, played quarterback at Arkansas, that went and when he made it to the NFL to the Jaguars, they immediately moved him to tight end, and he
played receiver.
He played receiver.
Yeah.
And he was standout receiver. He did great.
Right.
But here's my other question. I don't want to knock Tim Tebow because he's a great guy, very outspoken about his faith, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
But in college and especially in the NFL, it only looks like he knows 3 plays. Can he memorize a playbook? The same thing with, like we've talked about off air, Brandon. Vince Young back in the day only knew 3 plays and 3 different variations of each play pretty much. and that was obvious. Tebow is kind of the same way. Can he really, get into a playbook and figure out how to play, anything other than quarterback, let alone quarterback? Because he's always overpowered the opponent. It's what it kind of is his style, I guess.
Yeah, and also one of the knocks on Tim Tebow is that he has trouble reading the defense from the quarterback position. What if you're lined up at tight end? You have an option route.
Well, as quarterback, he's always had happy feet.
Yeah.
He won't sit in a pocket, and he's quick to take off running.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if that's a situation with his check downs or he just doesn't know how to do the check downs right.
Well, he really doesn't. He doesn't check down. His routes are really simple. Usually as a shallow and one coming over the top. He reads 1, 2, and that's all he can read.
And it brings another question. He was not, and this might offend some people. So hopefully we don't get nasty comments on our Facebook page. But Tim Tebow was homeschooled. He played with Nice High School in Florida, but he didn't go to Nice High School. He was homeschooled. Did he get that preparation to learn anything, let alone a playbook? I don't. Maybe it's just me putting 2 and 2 together that he just was not prepared to learn. But he's a Florida graduate, I suppose. So that's got to count for something. He graduated college, but something just doesn't seem right with as many plays or the playbook. That's all I can really hit on. It's he always Tebow to the left, Tebow to the right, wildcat. That's always what it seems like Tim Tebow plays.
Yeah, he has a knack of. He's a hard-nosed guy, works hard. That's tough, hard guy to bring down. Runs hard. You're going to get everything that he has. The knock on him on the NFL level, especially at the quarterback position. Go back and look at it. He can't check out of plays. That's the first knock. The second one, he led the league his last year in Denver and delay games penalties for quarterbacks. Right. So he has trouble grasping that concept of checking down, doing multiple things that you need a quarterback to do. I know people say, well, look at his win-loss record. Well, look at it. All right, because you can look at it, and Denver had one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the league. All right, that defense scrapped, fight and clawed. If his defense, wasn't as great as they were, those wins that he had, could have very well been losses. You look at the end of the game, he's 9 of 21 and 114 yards. But people goes, well, he just won. Well, man, can't really put that on him. He's made some throws, but he hadn't gone out and done it consistently. So it's going to be interesting to see what New England does with Tim Tebow. And, like I said, the interesting thing is Aaron Hernandez with all the stuff that's surrounding him right now.
With Tom Brady, it makes you wonder, why would they waste the salary cap money? Why would they even waste the...
Well, they really didn't waste the money because I think it's a 2-year deal, and he doesn't get any guaranteed money. He has to go through it, and then what'll probably happen is they'll use him as maybe like a third-string quarterback, because we all know the quarterback from Arkansas, Ryan Mallett is probably going to be the next one in line because he has a little bit stronger arm than Brady, and all it is he's just trying to learn the offense. And Brady's already said he's got, 3-4 years maybe left, and he's going to retire.
And the folks are real high on Ryan Mallett.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan Mallett was a good college quarterback, and he, knew more than 3 plays. Obviously, he was prepared for the NFL when he was at Arkansas. He really was. He was prepared to go to the NFL.
But I will say that I think with Tebow, I think one of the things that jumped out at me was even people that may not have liked him or did not think he was that good, all of them agreed that when he got to the Jets, it was just complete and utter circus. Because we all know that Sanchez was not the answer. The guy was fumbling the ball so much, and only 42% of the time did they get the ball back. He was giving it to the other team. And even if it wasn't you, okay, fine, you're not going to use Tim Tebow. What took you so long to pull Sanchez and put somebody else in? He just was not getting it done. And then it's just, I have a lot of respect for Rex Ryan, but there also comes a point, too, when it's like, okay, look, this is a 3-ring circus. I mean, LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, is basically saying, I've never been around a group of selfish people in all my life. And so is Greg McElroy saying that. Greg McElroy couldn't get away with it, but Tomlinson could, because he carries clout. And if he's saying that, then it's a problem.
Right.
So I just think that I agree with you guys. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But if it doesn't work, I think the way I look at it is Tim Tebow's made his money.
We're making all our Boston fans mad tonight between talking about how they've stunk it up, and apparently you've got a lot of respect for Rex Ryan, which they probably don't like. So.
I like Rex Ryan because he's a coach, but I will say he has done some really boneheaded things.
He's come from pretty decent bloodline.
I'll tell you, speaking of boneheaded and the New York Jets, their general manager, the decision making, the needs. When you needed you didn't need Tim Tebow. You need an offensive lineman, a safety. You went and got Tim Tebow when you should have been addressing needs. And a lot of people felt like that Tim Tebow move was to sell newspapers and try to get the attention off of the New York Giants.
Sell newspapers and sell jerseys.
So,
absolutely.
And he should.
Well, I mean, you're in New York. You're in the middle of a marketing mecca up there. So absolutely, that's probably what he was thinking.
But, that's what's so funny is another bonehead decision, going into the NBA. The Brooklyn Nets had, basically it started out kind of rough, so they fire their coach and they go get who? Who's the guy that everybody was saying, oh, I can't believe they got him?
Well, they fired Avery Johnson after he was named coach of the month in the month of November. So they fired Avery Johnson, and then once Avery Johnson was fired, who took over for Avery Johnson?
Was it Van Gundy?
Yes, it was Van Gundy.
And then Van Gundy takes them to the playoffs. They get bounced, first round?
Yeah.
And so they tell him, we're not going to bring you back. Of course, like Brandon was saying, and Matt, like you were saying, they're probably going to go get a coach. They're being serious. Then all of a sudden, after Jason Kidd announces that he's retiring after 19 years, he's the new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. I don't send me hate mail, but I'm trying to be serious here. You say you wanted a good coach, so you'll go get somebody who's never coached. I just don't get that.
Somebody that hasn't been out of the league a month.
Exactly.
He wasn't out of the league 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane, man. It's insane. I don't understand why they fired Avery Johnson in the first place.
I don't either.
That was a dumb move. Then you had the coach that took you to the playoffs. Okay, you went in the playoffs last year. Got you to the playoffs. You were building something pretty good, so you're gonna mess it up. And this has been the theme with the NBA. Whether it's been George Karl, coach up at Memphis,
he's still on the table right now as we're recording this, isn't he?
I think George Karl got snatched up.
By whom?
I don't know. But
I thought he was going to for a while. I was like, well, maybe George Karl will go to the Nets. But I mean, he was NBA Coach of the Year.
Yes.
Fired.
I don't understand what's going on in the NBA this year.
I don't either. And then you got the Denver Nuggets. That's the best regular season you've ever had.
That's where George Karl was at.
Yeah, and I just don't get why they are doing this. And I know people will say, oh, well, they're getting rid of the whole staff and the lineup and everything at the Denver Nuggets, and that's why they're getting rid of him. I just don't buy that. I'm like, the guy was coach of the year. He did everything right. You tell him you're not bringing him back. And I'm like, why? What?
Well, George Karl and the general manager didn't see eye to eye. So, GM wanted to throw his weight around, so, George Karl left. So, that was stupid on their part.
Yeah.
I don't understand why a general manager will try to butt heads with a guy that's been in the league for as many years as George Karl has, with as much success as he's had, and proving that he's being successful where he's at. That if I was a general manager, I'd be like, I'm going to let you do what you need to do.
Everybody wants to be the man. Everybody wants to be man. And you get a situation like that, we have, too many Chiefs, no Indians. Yeah. All right, everybody can't be the rooster. We need
too many chefs in the kitchen.
Hey, GM, you made a decision. Now you have to live with it.
And now on to our next bonehead decision. the NCAA, after all the crap that they have gone through with the University of Miami, with the situation with Penn State, where people were like, "Why did you drag your feet so long? Why did you do certain things?" Oregon gets handed down their punishment, or should I say? I won't even say. I'm not
really a punishment.
I'm gonna let Brandon say.
That's like a reinforcement. It's like you go sit in the corner for 30 seconds. We'll see you next bowl season. We're good.
So I mean,
Brandon, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, you said it best when I said it's a slap on the wrist, and you basically.
And that's an insult to slaps.
That was more like a tickle.
Yes.
But I mean, what is it? Why do you think they were so light? I mean, people may be saying, "Hey, they're losing scholarships. They're losing 3 scholarships over 3 years. That's
a scholarship a year."
Yeah.
You really want to know why I think they were so light, and this is a conspiracy theorist thought. So please write us about this. Tell me I'm wrong, but Nike money. Oregon's got all the Nike money. How many schools, are at the whim of Phil Knight? And if Phil Knight's not happy, let's say, well, I'm not going to really worry about giving money to all these college football programs as much anymore, especially Oregon, and go to another, sport. I mean that's it's kind of a stretch here, but there's a lot of money involved, is what I'm saying.
I feel like the real reason is this: the NCAA doesn't have any teeth. They've been discredited as an organization over the last few months with what's been going on with Miami. So the NCAA doesn't want to come down hard on anyone right now, knowing with the missteps that have been taking place through the whole Miami investigation. Even with the documents that came out, they were awful. And Miami is probably getting ready to sue the NCAA in the case, and they're probably going to win.
Well, and also, if you look at NCAA rulings, there's kind of a correlation with championships won versus rulings. Oregon's never hasn't won, as good as they've been here recently, a national championship in football. In the past 20, 30 years, you look at Alabama, Penn State, Miami. They're winning programs, and people get jealous, and the NCAA is willing to throw the hammer down.
Well, and let me pose this question to you guys, because we all, when the whole thing with Penn State came out, whether we all said we agreed with it or we didn't agree with it, the NCAA, would you not say they were going to go through with it because they had the backing of, whether it's social media or the population saying, yeah, what happened there was horrible, hit them with everything you have, take everything away from them because that was horrible what happened. Whereas with like Oregon, if they were to come down and say, hey, guess what, 3 years probation, 2-year bowl ban, we're going to fine you this much money, we're going to do this, people go, really? You're going to do that to them? All they did was this, and this.
Oregon's a hot commodity. They're the team that everybody goes, well, they've got a different uniform every week. I like Oregon,
Yeah.
So, of course, they're not going to do that.
But you mean, even with Miami, you didn't, with all the stuff that was being reported, even then, like, people were really like, you can't, are you really going to do that to Miami? Like, are you really going to hit them that hard? And I'm like, I know some of it sounds bad, but it's almost like the Penn State case is the only thing I can ever think of where they looked at the NCAA and said, go, do it, do your worst. They deserve to be punished. Every other time it's been, oh, the NCAA, you're nothing but a bunch of crime bosses, y'all suck, you're just going after people, y'all aren't fair. And I'm wondering if that's what it is. It's like, okay, maybe they figured, hey, look, let's not screw up this good mojo we've got. And like Brandon said, let's not get our ass handed to us in a court case. So let's just go ahead and say, look, we'll give you 3 years.
Yeah, that court case is coming.
Right.
And basically on College Football Live, the Miami is suing the NCAA is imminent. It's not if, it's more like when. So that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, the university has pretty strong leadership as well. I mean,
Donna Shalala,
was she secretary of, back in the 90s under the Clinton years, was it Commerce?
Yeah, she was something like that.
Yeah, she was pretty high.
High-ranking official.
Yeah, somebody's going to post on her Facebook and say, hey, she was secretary of this, you dummies. How dare you not know? So she was secretary of something.
Now, one of the other bonehead decisions, this is something I have to ask because people will...
This is like the Bonehead show.
Yeah, this is pretty much the Bonehead episode.
When you see it posted and you see the Bonehead show, now you'll know why.
Shout out to Tony Curry.
Bonehead.
Yeah.
Tone the Bone. With the NHL, with the season being shortened, and then we get into the Stanley Cups, it really, especially after the NBA Finals, went 7 games, probably one of the best NBA Finals that they've had in a while, you really felt like, okay, here we go, this is going to turn into a 7-game series, and then all of a sudden, Boston just turned into the Chicago Cubs. Like, oh my gosh, we're supposed to lose now. What happened? I mean,
it was still, even though it went 6 games, it was still one of the best Stanley Cup Finals in decades, possibly. So, the fact that 17 seconds pretty much sent the cup one way.
2 goals in 17 seconds. That's amazing.
And that's a great sport. It's really underrated, especially here in the Southeast.
It's hard to find. I think that's one of the things that hurts the NHL is that right now it's hard to find. You have the Stanley Cup, and you have the playoffs, but you have to go really search for it,
right?
To find it, and that's not the case with the.
And I remember when it was on Fox in the '90s, and that's when I used to watch it.
Unfortunately, it's gotten a little bit easier here with NBC having the rights to it. Not all the games were on NBC, but they were on NBC Sports Network. NBC rebranded Versus because Versus was a Comcast network, and now because Comcast and NBC is the same company, NBC was able to rebrand Versus as NBC Sports Network, and that was kind of the exclusive home of this year's Stanley Cup playoffs and finals, and they did just a fantastic job with it. I've got to give a lot of credit to NBC Sports Network because they were really well done.
Do you know how the NHL did from a rating standpoint?
I do not. I'd like to know that. I will say this: their broadcast team was a lot more fun to listen to than the ESPN and ABC broadcast teams on the NBA Finals, or at least for me.
I felt so bad. Poor Van Gundy. It was like they're actually letting.
Here's another kind of side sports issue. I'd like to know the ratings of the NBA Finals this year versus the NBA playoffs, because I'm willing to bet that they'd probably be a lot more fun to watch if they were on TNT. I know it's a cable network. I know it's not a broadcast network, but I'd rather listen to Marv Albert and have Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal do the pre and post game than Magic Johnson and all the other boneheads to keep the theme going from ESPN.
I'm so locked in the game, I really don't care who does the
commentary.
I
don't know.
I was about to say, there's guys talking.
There really is an addition, something that can be added with commentary.
Have you ever listened to a Pam Ward game? Oh.
Well, and the good news is they did announce, finally they're getting around to it, they're now going to start outlawing flopping in the NBA.
What took so long?
I know. I'm like, what? Did you have to wait till after this season and after the finals? You could have put that thing in the next game.
Well, they've been handing out the fines. In my opinion, they just haven't been handing out enough of them.
Well, and that's true. Now, before we go, guys, and before we get into we're going to be back for our next segment. Before we go, I have to ask. I know you did not like, because I know you're not a big Heat fan, but would you say how did the NBA Finals come out for you this year?
I felt like Miami was the best team. I felt that the whole year I said you could just hand Miami the trophy.
You said that you should hand them the trophy, but it still went 7 games and then 7 games.
Yeah.
See, they need to listen to us more often, damn it. See, that's why we're the best, and that's the way
everyone else just the rest.
Yeah. We're the Goodyear blimp, they're just the ropes hanging from us, that's all right? Well, when we come back, we're going to discuss college football scheduling and Nick Saban.
We Michael Jackson, you Tito.
What?